Hey CIS 102, this is Jenny Kunkel. In this video, I want to add some perspective to the topics that the text covered in Module 8 in the development process section. I've worked in IT on software development projects and teams at 3 manufacturing companies over my career in industry. My first company was a Fortune 500 company. My second company was a company on the smaller end with maybe 500 total employees. And then my last company was more of a middle tier company. Based on my experiences, a stakeholder in the business will come to the IT development team with an idea for a new system, website, or change to an existing system. And then a vetting process is conducted by an IT business systems analyst whose job is to work with the business to determine if the change can be justified and if there is sufficient return on investment or ROI based on a rough estimate of the size of the project. If the project is approved, a team will be created to work the project, and depending on the size of the project, a project manager is identified, and that could be the business systems analyst that worked with the initial business stakeholder, or it could be an architect or programmer on the project team. If the project is for the development of a website, depending on the focus of the site, whether it's an external facing website representing the company, a design firm will be generally contracted for the design of what that website will look like and all the colors and all the facets that a designer is playing based on the table 8 for roles and responsibilities of the software development team. If it is an internal web application, the design will generally be done by a full stack developer, and there is no separate designer role except in the instance where an internet presence is needed. Now, the roles that they outline imply that the projects will always be focused around websites, and this truly is not the case in a corporate capacity. It could be that projects could be focused on the fact that a new software package for purchasing has been procured and needs to be integrated into an existing software framework and into applications that already exist in the landscape. For those projects, it's more of an integration approach and where you are designing how the data from one system can be extracted and used to update the other systems to keep things working in harmony without any front-end design elements to be concerned about. A team for a sizable project will have a project manager, as previously discussed. It will have an architect who is responsible for making sure that things are being done to software development requirements and to help resolve any technical issues that come up during the development process. One or more programmers who could be a full stack web developer would be assigned, and each programmer on the team is responsible for doing their own unit tests for features that they are responsible for delivering. When the programmer deems that the feature is complete, the business systems analyst will test it in a unit test environment and then ask for a business stakeholder to do final testing for approval of release of the feature to production. That's kind of simplifying the testing process. The one thing to note is that there are generally different testing environments that are used for testing out the features before the final release. There is one test environment that the development is done for unit testing of the feature. For the smaller company that I worked at, there was only the unit test environment where limited system testing was done. For the middle-sized and larger companies that I worked at, when a change was approved in the unit test environment, the change was promoted to a systems integrated test environment. At the large company, there were actually 4 system integration test environments that software had to be tested within before a change got promoted to production. The larger the company, the system integration testing is more involved and takes more time to accomplish before final release. The waterfall approach was the approach on projects that was used historically in the early days to plan and schedule project requests. In the last 5 years, there has been more of a switch to the agile development methodology. The user community, as your text Relays sees portions of the system develop faster, but the changes deployed are not fully functional at each stage of the sprint. Only until the final stages of the sprints is a particular feature fully functional, and this has truly been one of the biggest hurdles with our business community that expects to see the final feature delivered instead of continuously iterating over the same feature to build out the function to its final state. Additionally, another issue that I've seen with this approach is that sometimes there has been a hurry to get a particular feature complete for a sprint, and shortcuts have been taken in the development process. And this causes more issues on follow on phases because of the haste to get something done, and things haven't been totally vetted, and it ends up being more of a rework phase, and it takes twice as long to develop the feature for the second phase or that follow on phase. So while there are advantages of focusing on the smaller scopes of features to be delivered more often, there are drawbacks in the process as well. One of the methodologies for project status is the daily scrum, where we talk about the features you are working on today, what you plan to get accomplished, and any roadblocks. While it sounds like this would be a perfect approach, meeting daily can be disruptive and not productive. If you're working on a feature that is going to last the entire sprint, if you're talking about it every day, you're pretty much reporting the same thing, rehashing the same report day after day. Your text also covers the DevOps approach, which is a little bit different approach to project management. And I'm going to switch over to GitHub. Here we see on our Agile that it is a circle showing the phases of Agile and the repetitive process. When we switch over to DevOps, we see that this is more of a process that is shown as an infinite process for continuous delivery. One of the tools that is used in DevOps is a continuous integration, continuous delivery, or what they call CI/CD pipeline. If I look at this next article, note that it shows that infinite feature as well. This is one of the tools, as I indicated, for DevOps. And this is going to give us a plethora of tools that can be used in order to accomplish getting a change integrated and deployed into production. Looks pretty complex, doesn't it, with all these tools hanging out here? While we were using the Agile development approach, we were focused on integrating a pseudo CI/CD pipeline to some extent to do the continuous integration and continuous deployment to our test environments exclusively, and cautiously looking at how this could be done to deploy production changes, which gets a little bit tricky with auditing restrictions that we have, like Sarbanes-Oxley, where we have requirements that the person that writes code cannot be the person deploying code to production. If you've known anything about Enron back in 2001, this is one of the fallouts of that scandal that companies now have to adhere to. How this works in a CI/CD pipeline is we write code for a feature, we write program code to test our feature's code, which we refer to as our automated test case for that feature. We check in the code to the source control repository. And in this case, our source control repository system is GitHub. So that includes the code for the feature as well as the code for that test. Once it is in GitHub, you can fire off a process that can build the change and then run the automated test cases for that feature. If those test cases pass, then the code is automatically deployed to the test environment. Initially, I said pseudo CI/CD because we are not necessarily closing that loop and doing any of the monitor and planning within that CI/CD pipeline. We're just automating some of those repetitive tasks that are a bit time-consuming to do manually. So while we're not truly using a DevOps with our Agile process, we are using some of the features of the DevOps process, mainly parts of that CI/CD pipeline, in order to get our changes deployed. Now, each team is likely to be doing something just a little bit different with respect to the team members, the project methodologies, and the teams that are used, but these are my experiences. Hopefully, this gives you a little bit more perspective of how things are used in industry on software development teams.